Hey folks, how's it going? Dr. Spin, eclectic album reviews and general musical meanderings. This week I want to talk to you about Vodou Ale, the album by Chouk Bwa and the Angstromers. Now, this is superficially an album that's meant to take traditional Haitian styles, Haitian drumming styles, and musical styles, singing styles, and update them with a little bit more of an electronic edge. And superficially, this album really does succeed at that. Okay, it's really this very nice job of taking those two elements and putting them together in a way that's meaningful. But I think the meaning of this album and what connects it is far away beyond just the superficial aspects of the sounds that are combined to make the album. Because Chouk Bwa and the Angstromers actually collaborated on this album on a very deep level. And because of that collaboration, I think that this album's way, way more successful than probably it would seem like at first glance, okay? And in order to understand how that collaboration works, we have to talk a little bit about the two entities involved. Chouk Bwa Lubete, as they're called more locally, is a performing group of what they call musique racine. And this translates into roots music. And roots music in Haiti has connections to what we also call Vodou music, or what we often call voodoo music. And despite the sort of, Hollywood ideas about voodoo and stuff like that, voodoo style, voodoo religion is actually very deeply spiritual. It's a cross between European and African and local styles synergized together into what we generally call the voodoo religion. This style of music, musique racine, is an attempt to reclaim a lot of voodoo traditions and a lot of that kind of sounds and the components of traditional music in a more contemporary style. This is sort of in reaction to the ending of a repressive regime in 1985. The style has grown out of that. And this is where Chouk Bwa has cultivated their sounds. And actually Chouk Bwa, as far as musique racine groups go, they're even more traditional than some. A lot of musique racine groups will cross like rock and other styles, whatever, but they have 3 drummers and 3 singers, and that's it. Now, Chouk Bwa did a tour of Europe in 2015. And through this tour of Europe, they became sort of associated with this group called these guys who refer to themselves as the Angstromers. It's 2 European producers/sound engineers, Nicholas Rapitas and Frederick Allstadt. And these 2 guys on their own have had a long tradition of kind of being involved in rave culture and dance music and EDM, and eventually kind of evolved into almost like a lot of almost transgressive noise music, where sound and noise almost become a form of meditation. And it's their already existing understanding and connection with this possibility of trance in electronic music that allows them to cross over into work with Chouk Bwa in this way, as we'll see. Now, soon after that tour in 2015, and the Angstromers were sort of asked by Chouk Bwa's management to kind of collaborate with them on an album and see if they can kind of bring that traditional Haitian music sound and update it a little bit. But because of their already existing connection with the idea of music as trance and rave culture from the 90s, the Angstromers looked at collaborating with Chouk Bwa beyond just adding synths to their stuff, but trying to get at that underlying sense of connection between sound and audience and performance. The drums are all live, and a lot of the work that they do with affecting the drums and the beats and the rhythms that you hear come from the Angstromers miking and doing sweeps and all sorts of kind of sound manipulation to broaden the sounds of just the drum. The drums are the ones that are making most of the sounds, but their treatment of those sounds is one of the main ways in which they're updating. They're crossing the bridge between technology and kind of tradition. Voodoo has its own associations, but it's actually a very kind of spiritual religion, and there's an ecstatic component to what they do. There's this idea of this being from the spirit realm called the Loas. The concept of the Loas comes from African tradition, transfers over into Haitian traditions, and it's this idea that there's these beings, these extra dimensional beings that the drums can conjure. And these Loas are the things that give people who are in these trance states the sense that they're involved in something that's larger than they're lost inside of this soundscape. And this produces kind of the ecstatic states that you see in a lot of these traditions. Well, the Angstromers also kind of felt that this was a way to cross this over was the trance states that you get from like extreme noise music and that kind of ambient music, are also like dance and EDM styles. So this is a very interesting way to try to collaborate with Chouk Bwa in a very metaphysical sense. And I think this is a really interesting and very open-minded way to approach this collaboration. I mean, you can get very like technical and superficial and be like, oh, well, this beat is going to go this fast and we're going to overlay with this. And that's all on the surface. But to try to connect with these Haitian performers in a way that's meaningful to both, but also talks about sort of extra normal perceptions of music and trance, I think that's a very, very interesting approach. And because of that, this album has a lot of depth to it beyond just the kind of upbeat, drum and bass songs. And from what I've seen of this collaboration, especially in some live clips, you can see that this kind of a deep collaboration is meaningful to both Chouk Bwa and the Angstromers. And there's a great video clip of them performing a song from Vodou Ale live in which the singers become very emotional. Connecting with this tradition on this metaphysical level allows the album to have a way more variety on it than it would seem at first glance. You hear this one track, Vodou Ale, that lead track, and you think, well, this is just going to be kind of like African dance music. This is not the case at all. Although there are some songs on this one that emphasize that kind of upbeat, polyrhythmic drumming and brings it into more of a dance, EDM, rave style of sound. There are also these pieces in here that are clearly just kind of declamatory singing pieces where they just add some ambience to it. And I think that's where we really start to get into some interpretations and some connections on this album that go way beyond just, adding 808 bass to a drum. The piece on there, Pelerin, is really just a declamatory Haitian piece. And I don't know the lyrics of this. I don't know how the lyrics are in Haitian. And so I can't tell you exactly what the lyrics are saying. But certainly there's this sense that he's singing this piece out to the heavens. And then the Angstromers come in with this very like galactic pulse sound. It's almost like a reaction to or a call to the singer. Like the Loas are speaking to him from beyond and responding to what he's saying.
Leve camper dans pays pour marcher, pour garder qui côté nous pour aller.
On one level, of course, it's a very compelling musical collaboration in which the two entities that came together to make the album really played on each other's strengths without ever giving up their identity. Chouk Bwa is allowed to be Chouk Bwa on that album, and the Angstromers are allowed to do what they do, and they find this common ground from almost beyond regular human perception. And it's that perception that makes the other level work so well, because it's also a very intellectually stimulating, a very interesting idea about how this collaboration between them produces those kinds of aesthetic choices. From the Angstromers in particular, and that intellectual aspect of the album and the interest that produces also leads you to a really an ability to appreciate this album on a level that I think that most albums don't get to function on. I think this cooperation that they have in realms that aren't really Western, normal Western thought, ties this album together in a way that's beautiful and really compelling. So highly suggested. Best I'm going to say about it today. So please, if you like this video, like it, subscribe it, and share it out with your friends. Also follow me over on Spotify. I'm going to put up another track over from Vodou Ale up there. And then also be on the lookout for my 2021 eliminations. Chouk Bwa is coming up this week, so keep your eyes on that. And I will see you later. Till then, catch you on the flip side.